Gano, Sego, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this start to a long weekend. I thought I'd host from outside today. The wind is beautiful, and it's blowing in some amazing people here. We have our uncle Tehahenteh, grandmother Renee, Sherry joining us, and we're gonna go for a nice journey together. And Uncle's going to talk about the star connection.
Yes, welcome everyone, and so nice to see you again, Renee and Tehahenteh. It's so lovely to be in the same screen as you, and had it not been the pandemic, we'd be in the same room as well, and learning from each other, and just having that energy together, and learning more about the star connection, which is something that I'm just so grateful that we have teachers like you and people who have kept that knowledge intact, and it's just wonderful that you're able to share that along with us and also our viewers. So welcome, Grandmother Renee and Tehahenteh.
Yes, it is a beautiful day. Yes, it is such a nice day to learn. Every day is a good day to learn, and especially I notice a lot of people are looking in the sky world in the evenings, and it is amazing because I think it's time. That's what they told us, that we will once wake up and we will look into the stars, and things will start coming together in our minds, our teachings. And so we are very blessed to have a very, as they say, a powerful reminder that we are connected to the stars. We are connected to the sky world. We are connected with the universe. And so what better way is to validate that today? And so here we go. Let's go. I'm anxious.
Awesome. Well, I'll put this screen share on, and hope this works. Is it on yet?
Not yet, but I'm here for you. Share screen and then highlight the area under. And this is our second visit with Uncle.
Okay, share.
Oh, there we go. You just popped up. Lovely.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we able to see that?
Yes.
Is it big enough?
No, if you can go to the and make it a bigger screen, and then it'll be full screen. I mean, you can see it, but you can also see your panel there. Let's see.
Does that work?
No, there's I think it's under. Nope.
If it's a PowerPoint, just go back there, and if it's a PowerPoint, just click from current slide, and it should go full screen.
We are so blessed to have the younger ones to know this technology.
Over by slideshow, on the top ribbon, you'll see slideshow. So click on slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah, and then go from current slide.
So let's play from start. Play from current slide.
Yep.
It's on.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you for support.
Thank you, everyone. It's Tehahenteh again, speaking to you from Six Nations, a Mohawk of the Turtle Clan, and Ganyakahaga is my language. And today we're talking about the star connection. So today we're looking at I always refer back to the language, because the language tells us everything. And so that first word that you see up there, it says "Gat setstan sarat goa sa oyera." So that's 2 words. And just to sum it up, in our language, we understand that everything is alive. And I mean everything, in the sense that we are, there's an inner universe and there's an outer universe. And there's a similarity between those two. And so what our understanding is, this is a great intelligent energy that completely surrounds us. And that's not to say that all energies are good, but this one here is what we call creation. And so at one time, this energy said to itself that it wished to expand its knowledge. And to be able to expand its knowledge, it had to put its parts in different places of the universe so that it could collect information. And so that's how we talk about that. And so what we say here, there's the word up there, and I've broken it up into bits and pieces of information. And as I told you 2 weeks ago, that our language is polysynthetic, which means each of its parts has a particular meaning within the word. It's kind of like an actual full sentence within each word. So we're going to look at these 2 words here to understand what this energy is about. And so we start with the pronoun, which is the Ka. And that pronoun makes it the it. And it's also a female pronoun. And anything that has a female pronoun in it tells us that it's very, very powerful. And it also tells us that it's modified from something natural. And I don't mean modified in the sense of changed, but made in a way that it comes from a natural area, and it has been somehow changed to be in its present form. And so what we're talking about here is the energy force. This satstam part is that energy force. And that energy force exists in everything. The SER is a nominalizer, which means that it's a noun maker. So it makes everything in front of it into a noun. The A is a joiner, which connects it to the great or the immeasurable, endless part, which is the Goa part of it. So that one word together means this is an immense entity that has been nounified. So we say that this is the force, or this is the energy, and it's made from something natural. The second word, Sa'uyera, the SA tells us that it is, it's kind of like a repetitive. It tells us that this has no beginning and it has no end. It's precise. I guess the easiest way to describe it is it's like a circle. So we don't really perceive it to have an end or a beginning. It's a seamless energy. The oyera is how something was done. So right at the beginning, this was already in existence. So even though we use words like the beginning, we really can't define what that beginning is. But what we know is that this here is that way. It's been put in motion, and it's been put in a way, and that's its natural force. So here we say that everything, that whatever exists, was initially created in the form of thought or spirit. And that's similar to that first presentation that I did. And it's this thought that we can sort of dwell on it a little bit, because we know that, or we certainly feel anyway, that we do have thoughts. And those thoughts are invisible. But the fact is, we know we have them, or we certainly believe we have them. And that's what we're talking about when we use words like spirit. And it was the thought that brought two kinds of energy together. And one form is known as matter, and the other form is known as breath, or pure energy. And we, as human beings, are made of both of these two energies. So here, I've got the one word at the top, which is odisto. And then there's a second word down in the middle portion, and it says odistokwa. Well, both of those words are referring to stars, but they're just referring to it in a different light. So our pronoun here is the O. And from that first word that I showed you, it had a Ka beginning. Well, that was the pronoun for that word. When something is natural, it has that O prefix. And the dist part is the spark. It could be a flame, it could be a spot. And so these are all the ways that we have of describing the star. And so the O at the end is actually a vowel, and this tells us how this star exists. So it just exists as that flame or that spot or that spark that we see in the nighttime sky. The next word, odistokwa, now adds on to the meaning a little bit. And as you can see, the O is still the pronoun, which means it's natural. And the dist part still means that it's the spark and it's the flame. And the H in that one is just an epithet aspirate, which means that it has to be there to make the word complete. And the KW is a reversive. So when we're thinking about the stars and we say, well, how do we know that it's intelligent? Well, in the background on this picture here, you can see sort of like a cloud formation in the center there. And that cloud formation further out, you can't see it at all. Basically, all you're going to be seeing is just a space. Well, what's happening here is these stars, of course, are made up of a huge combination of materials. And so these materials first exist as an atom. And when two atoms are floating around in space, they recognize that they have something in common, and they'll start to bring themselves together. And they keep on bringing themselves together along with literally billions of other atoms that have the same attraction to each other. They are close enough so that they realize that they need to be or want to be together. So as they grow closer together, now we'll see a cloud forming, and that now tells us that these atoms are so close together that it's actually forming something that we can see. So something that we were not able to see before had the intelligence to bring itself together until it was visible. And that cloud continues to compact on itself until it finally becomes the star. And that star then has a lifetime all of its own. And that KW reversive meaning, the ending of it, tells us that that star will cease to exist at one time. And when it ceases to exist, they say it goes into supernova. And that supernova literally explodes, and it sends all its parts into thousands and thousands excuse me, directions. And now it's completed its cycle. So a star had a beginning and it had an ending as well. And so these are the things that we're constantly looking at. So there's the star at the top again. And so this time I'm showing you here that O here at the top is natural. The dist part here, as we said in the other slide, that's the spark. And the O is how it exists in its natural form. Now what we're doing is we're saying Ga, and we're replacing the O with a Ka. And as I said in the previous slide, that Ka now tells us that something has been modified from its original state. So this, you can see how similar these are. And the A on the end here, that is how this Gadzista exists. And when we put that together, at the bottom here, it says Gadzista, means the flame of life. So we, as human beings, actually have this flame inside of us. And it's created from something natural. What's natural? The exact same way the star was formed, but it existed in its natural state. So when we were given the spark, it was called the flame of life, because that's the heat that we have in our bodies. And so, as I said, the purpose of this great intelligent energy was to collect information. And we as human beings were also experienced from a perspective that we don't, not many anyway, some people do, can remember something of their previous life before they were born here through the portal of their mother. So when we were born, we were given this heat, and we're also given a breath, and I'll speak more about that too. But I just want you to be aware there that our language connects us to the stars, and we're made of exactly the same materials that's in the outer atmosphere. So in a way, we are in fact like stardust. In our telling of creation, we talk about this world that existed on the other side of the stars. And so this is an artist rendition of what that outer world or that upper world looked like. It looks very, very similar to the world that we know. But the difference is that they're all pure energy, which means they don't have a physical body like we do as human beings. These energy beings that we talk about as Radino Hiake Harono, they're people the sky world. And so what happened a long, long time ago is in that sky world, this woman, she went and she married this chief, and that's the chief that's standing beside that tree that's knocked over. Well, in their world, that was called the celestial tree. And that celestial tree means that it was the tree of life. In that world, that tree provided all the light that they needed. It provided all the things, all the essentials that they needed. It provided the food that we needed, it provided the air that they needed, and all of the things that needed in that sky world. That tree was that source. And they were told never to hurt that tree because they depended upon that tree for their life. And so this woman that married the sky chief, she had become pregnant, and she had a desire to taste the root of that tree. And she hired her husband to go and dig that root up. And as he dug, he accidentally made a hole. And that hole is what you see at the base of that tree. Some say that the tree was actually uprooted. And so he didn't come back right away from digging the hole. And so his wife got really impatient, and she went over there to see why he was not coming back. And basically he was in shock. He didn't realize what he had done because he peered into the hole. And so Sky Woman, the one that you see falling there, that's his wife. And of course, she starts peering into the hole too, and she's really, really curious. And she leans over too far, and so she falls through that hole. And it says that she grabs onto a number of things as she was falling. And so we understand that it's going to be the beginning. And so this here, they say that this world is 7 layers of stars. Some people say 7 layers of stars. And they say when we look up into the sky, that's only one look. So if you multiply that by 7, that's how far away this other dimension is, this other place. So so she comes down, and of course there you can see the birds in the sky up here. And I'm shortening the story as much as I can so we can get a good picture of what happened. So she's falling through the sky, and the animals that were here on the earth notice that she's falling through the sky, and they say, we've got to do something because we don't want her to get hurt. And so as the telling goes, it was a great turtle that said, well, you can put this person, this entity that's coming down, you can put her on my back. But at that point, the turtle's back was barren, and there wasn't any land on it. And it wasn't until Sky Woman actually landed on the back that she realized that it was barren, and she didn't know whether she was going to live or whether she was not going to live. But she had brought with her seeds from the sky world, but she didn't have anywhere to plant them. So she hired the animals, and one by one they dove, and they brought her earth down up the bottom of up from the ocean, and that's what she used to spread around the back of the turtle as she danced the shuffle dance. And it says that when she danced that dance, she went around in a counterclockwise circle, and she was moving her feet back and forth, and she was spreading the earth as she went. And so she was also dropping seeds as she went. And so what you're seeing here is the earth after the turtle provides the shell or this bedrock, and the natural process from the water that was drying on the back there created mosses, and then it created other things after those mosses died, until you get to see the entire back being developed with new vegetation. And so Sky Woman lived. But as I was saying before, that she was pregnant when she came down. And this is actually a photo, artist rendition of the grandmother. This is grandmother here, because the mother died during conception. These two brothers here were the twins that were born. And so one was called Skawiskara and the other one was called Tehahenteh. So Skawiskara means the one with crystals. He was crystal-like. He doesn't show it in this picture here, but it said he had a crown right through the center of his head, and it was very, very sharp. And even in the tomb, in the mother's womb, the two boys were arguing. And so when one was about to be born, he says, "There's a proper way to be born." And the other one says, "Nah," he says, that's nonsense. He says, "I'll just come up any old way that I want." And they argued and argued and argued, and they never really settled it. But they did settle that one was going to come first. So that one was Tehahenteh. That means he's holder of the heavens. So when he was born, his grandmother grabbed him and she wrapped him up. And while she was wrapping him up, the second one was being born. But she didn't actually observe the birth. And the second one, the Skawiskara, the one who's called Crystal, or Flint sometimes they call him, he had used his crown, and he came out underneath the armpit of his mother, and so she passed away. So these boys now were growing up very quickly, and Skawiskara, he was very jealous of his brother Tehahenteh, and he would tell that his grandmother, that it was Tehahenteh, holder of the heavens, who had killed their mother, which wasn't true. So grandmother, she gets so upset with Tehahenteh, holder of the heavens, she grabs him by the scruff of the neck, and it says, "Wahodek Sanundi." It means that she threw him out as far as she could. And so now when he's out and about, and he has nothing to do. He's been thrown out. He doesn't have he doesn't have anything to hunt with, so he makes himself a bow, and he makes himself an arrow, and then he's going around and he's shooting his arrow, and he misses his shot. So he goes to look for his arrow, because it wasn't like you could go to the store and buy new arrows. They were pretty scarce. So he goes looking for his arrow, and as he's looking for his arrow, where it came down, it was into a sort of like a low-laying area, maybe a dried out swamp or something like that. And he's walking across this sort of like clay base, and the sun is shining, and you can see like the mirage coming up. And through that mirage, he sees another figure approaching him. And he's sort of taken by surprise because he didn't realize there was anyone else there except him and his family. So the figure approaches him and calls him by name. He says, "You're Tehahenteh." And he says, "Yeah." And he says, "Yes, I am." And he says, "I know your mother, and I know your grandmother." And he says, "I know what happened to you. I know that your grandmother threw you out, and you were really, really disappointed and really didn't know what to do, and you might have bad feelings about it." But he gave him this teaching, and this teaching, he tells him that, you know, your grandmother is a really decent being, a decent person, and she really does love you. But what happened was she was believing a lie, and so that's the reason she threw you out. But you can't hold this against her. So he says, he tells him to keep on loving her, not to shun her in any way, shape, or form, because they were the only ones here. And so finally, he says to the stranger, he says, "Who are you anyway?" And the stranger said, "I am your parent." So we understand at this point that this parent then gifts him with a bow, the most beautiful bow ever, the strongest bow, the most accurate bow. And he says, I want you to have this. He also gives him a little packet of corn as well. He says, "You're going to need this." And so that part of the story kind of ends right there and goes on to other things. And so at that point in the story, I was thinking, well, you know, Tehahenteh, he already had a bow, and now he's got the most beautiful bow, the most accurate bow. And I wondered, gee, I wonder what he's going to do with two bows now that it's not exactly like you can shoot with two bows. So when they grow up, when the two brothers grow up, Tehahenteh and Skawiskada, they both add to nature. They add animals, they add plants, and they complete the landscape of the world over. And so it was Tehahenteh that went out, and he went out to inspect all of this beauty that he was seeing. He was looking at all the different grasses and the medicines in the grasses, and looking at the ground, and you can see the trees are all perfect. All the grasses are perfect, the flowers, everything, water, and the fishes in the water, and on of all the things that he was looking at. And so he said, I have to inspect all of this, like the Onadagwata. This is one of our medicines. And so all this variety of plant life that he's looking at, and making sure that everything is just perfect. Because at this point, he says, now it's time that I introduce human beings into this world, because all the things here are all there for him. All the medicines are there for him, all the flowers are there for, And everything has been given a purpose. So each one of these medicines that we're looking at were given a particular purpose. And those purpose is to enhance our life and keep us healthy. And so these are some of the things that he's looking over. And so even the deer, he makes them so that they're barely visible. And he says, everything is right now. Everything is right for the human being. And so he also looks at all the different animals, make sure the animals, they receive their instructions too. And I'm just going to give you the instructions that the deer received. They were given the instruction that them and their family, and what I mean by family, we have many other animals that give us their life as well. And so they were given that understanding that when at a certain time of the year, when the leaves fall, that's the time to go hunting. And they're the ones that then give us their life. And so if you're a bow hunter, and you're of the right mind, you've put down your tobacco before you went into the bush, and you've asked that the animals not be afraid, and you don't want to disturb them. And when they're ready, they'll come right up to you, and they'll stand right there in front of you. And that first one, we're supposed to send that one to our brother and our sister. And so those are the understandings that we have when we go hunting. So, Creator, sometimes we call Tehahenteh Creator. He has many names, really. He said, I understand that now is the time is correct that I introduce human beings. So what he did is he picked up the clay, and he said, this clay is the energy of the earth. And as I said earlier on, we're made up of two things. And so we're made up of two kinds of energies. We're made up of the energy of the earth, which is the clay. And we still today refer to ourselves in that way. And we say that I am of such and such a clay. And that clay becomes your clan. We say, what clay are you? And so that's the reason why that we understand that we're made of this clay. And so Creator takes that clay and he starts and he makes it into the shape of a human being. And as he's making it there, he's also thinking that he's got to go the next step. And so what he's doing, he's combining the clay, which is the energy of the earth, and he's now, it says, Asa na Tehahenteh again. That means he took his breath and he pushed it into that clay. It says 3 times. So 3 times he gives this clay his breath. And at that same time, when I mentioned to you before about that Gadzista, that flame of life, this was also one of the very first things that he gives us. And he said, this is your gift. So when you take that breath, when we as a baby take that breath, we've taken those 2 energies together with this understanding of how our lives are to be. And in the first presentation, I also told you a little bit about the opening address. These were also instructions that were given to us so that we would know how to live in this world and how to interact with not only other human beings, but of all life forms. And so we have those two things coming together. I had mentioned earlier that Tehahenteh had received a bowl, and I really didn't understand at the time the significance of it. What I did understand was that he was getting a teaching, but I didn't understand the depth of it. So that first word there is Aana. So these are the most precious gifts given to human beings. So we're given that understanding of the bowl. And Creator also said there are many other gifts I'm going to give you as well. And they're all very, very precious. And he says, the other thing that I'm going to give you as human beings, I'm going to give you Owana. Owana is your language. So each and every person in the world was given their own particular language. And so that is very, very a precious, precious gift that we're given. Where also the next one says Garana. And that Garana now means our song, which means that we have a responsibility to protect that and to keep that alive and to use it for the intent that it's meant to be used for. And so it exists as our song, and we say these are the song of our mother, the earth. That's that heartbeat. That's that drum that we use. And we also use our voice to make that song, that particular dance. And so we were also given another gift. The one underneath that one says Gahsana. Gahsana is our name. And our name is very, very important, because when our name is given, it's given a purpose as well. It's given a goal to something that needs to be learned in this world. And so when we go, for instance, to collect our medicines, or when we send somebody else to get medicine for us, that's what that person takes with them. He takes your name. And when he finds the patch of medicines, he'll go to that patch of medicines and he'll put his medicine down, which is tobacco. And then he'll speak to those, what we say, leader plants. Some call them grandfather plants or grandmother plants. And when you speak to them, what you do is you say, this person here has this name. This is his name. And he is the one that needs your help. You are the medicine plants. And so the medicine plants there will be told that we're going to take one of your relatives. And so we ask you that you send all your energy with those relatives that we have attached to this name. And that's so the medicines will know where they're going to be used and the purpose that they're going to be used for. And so those leader plants will say to their relatives, one of you is going to go with this person here that's come to bring the medicine back. And we want you to go with all our strength. And even today, we know that plants thrive when we speak to them. And they do speak to each other as well. And that's the energy that we have. The word at the bottom is skana. So when we understand these things, what we end up with is we end up in a very peaceful state. And you'll notice here that what I've done is I've taken that ENN and made them blue all the way through. And that's because all of this knowledge comes from the language. And so I was thinking, these words are all related. These words are all the precious gifts given to human beings. But personally, I really didn't understand the bowl part of it. But it was also the part that opened itself up. And it happened to me when I went target practicing one day, and I pulled that bow back and let the arrow fly. And I guess sometimes we're not really paying attention to all the things that we should be paying attention to. But this particular day, I noticed that sound of the twang of the string when I let it go. And as I was watching the arrow fly, I could hear this hum, and it was like that. And it just struck me that the EN in all of these words, that's what it's about. It's about vibration. It's about frequency. Because the metaphoric part about the bow is you pull it back. And when you pull that back, what you're doing is you're gathering the energy that you would gather energy from your ancestors, from wise people, from people of the past who have learned things before us. And so when you let that arrow go, when you let that string go, that propels the arrow forward. And so now that takes this into the future. And so that vibration is the key to everything. Everything responds to vibration. Everything does. So when we're using our words, like the second one there, Owana, it says that we are to be using our words when we do our ceremony. So that vibration has already been put into our language, so that when we use those ceremonial words, the entire cosmos realizes it. It senses it. And so the same thing when we're doing our songs. We're creating a different kind of vibration, a different frequency. All of these frequencies have meaning, and it all has meaning to us because we are part of this cosmos. We are just like the stardust, that we're made from the same things that the stars are made out of. And so when we're using our name, the entire cosmos recognizes us as being an individual, being like nobody has the same fingerprint. Nobody has exactly the same personality. That's how unique this cosmos is. It's made that uniqueness in us as well. It's also given us the instructions of what are these keys that opens up this energy, because this energy, this vibration, this frequency is usable. We can use that in our everyday life to feel well, and whatever it is, whatever thought that we have. Remember at the beginning, I talked to you about thought, that we know it exists. All our knowledge has been placed in our languages so that we're able to use it. And so those are some of the things that were given to us to be holding on to, very, very precious. And when we're using these vibrations, when we're exercising this, when we're meditating and all the things that we do to be in a spiritual state, that brings us to the last word at the bottom, which is skana, which is peace. And that's just exploding as it's so profound. Along with all of these things that I've spoken about already, I look here and I say, what I see is I see the other thing that's been given to us. And I call this the heart piece, because we hardly ever talk about the heart piece. The greatest energy that we have as human beings is in the heart. We think the brain is the most powerful thing, but it's not. It's the heart that's the most powerful thing. And so this word here, Atokata, the AT is a reflexive, which means it brings the action back to the pronoun, whatever the pronoun in the verb is. Dukkha, that part of the word, is our feelings, our emotions. And there's two parts of this feeling. We have the 5 physical senses, and so we understand those as the physical senses. But there's also 5 other senses that are invisible, and they're just like the visible senses, except they're not visible, just like thought. So there are things like creativity, intuition, gut feeling. Anytime that you have these, that just seems not right. That's that feeling that's not physical, connecting with you and telling you that this is not a correct situation here. The H in this word is just an apathetic aspirate, which means it's just there for pronunciation. The TSHER, we talked about that before as a nominalizer. We have 3 or 4 different kinds. And the A again is how it exists. And when we talk about this, you say, well, what is this word? This word is how we talk about wisdom, because that wisdom is not coming from your brain. It's not coming from your logical point of view. It's coming from deep within you. And that is that sense of feeling. It's that heart sense. And it's the thing that's not talked about enough, because I think we're maybe starting to see it now, because we've been into this lockdown and lock off situation for such a long time now. It seems over a year, that we're actually realizing just what it is that we're missing. We're missing that heart piece. We miss our friends. We miss our family. We miss all of those things that are necessary to feel well inside. You see, if you look at the earth, they have pictures of the earth, and they show around the earth the magnetic field. Well, the fact is, everything has a magnetic, or I wouldn't call it a magnetic field, but it has an energy field. So just in case we have some scientists out there, that energy field, though, is real. it's kind of like they tell us to stay 6 feet apart from each other. Well, why is that? It's because our energy field as human beings is actually 6 feet. So our energy is actually reaching out. So when we get close to a tree, that tree's got an energy field too. And we start feeling good when we're touching that tree because we're exchanging energy with that. And it's the same thing when we talk about anything here on Earth. When we're in close proximity, and even with people, you say, oh, you're in my space. Well, it's because we feel that energy from another person. Some people can even putting their hands, like you hold your two hands out in front of you, you start squeezing them together, you can actually feel the heat when you get to a certain distance. By the time you're about an inch apart, you should be able to feel that heat. And you can try that too. That's that heat that's within us. Because that heat that's within us, we're also given an understanding. And that understanding is that matter and energy is only temporal. It will not have a long life, not like the energy. The energy continues, but the earth energy has to go back to the earth. So when the earth energy goes back to the earth, the heat goes as well. And that's why the body goes cold, is because that spark of life is no longer there. It's already gone back, or going back, returning to its source, with all the collected memories that it had here on Earth. So in a way, this short telling is kind of like giving us our purpose here on Earth and how we're interconnected with everything. There's way more to it, but this is the short version of that. So all of that, leads us right back to the beginning with how we exist. So we exist in all of these forms here that you're seeing on the screen. And so we are in fact connected to the stars. There's the Gadzista, that's that flame of life, comes from Odzisto, which is the star. And so you can see from our explanation here that this is how we understand it to be. And I was leave some time for some questions. So if I shut this off, I should be on screen again. So
Well, we just had a lot of really great comments in the comment section. It's just been amazing that people really love this, that they needed this. It's really good learning, especially when we're talking about energy and where that energy comes from. And I loved how you broke down the words and explained every single piece of that word and how language is so robust. And it's just amazing.
I could feel, I have some great messages here. So, Sherry and I have angles from two different places. I could feel the energy myself. And it's, for myself, I've done a lot of my own inner work and connecting to the energy. And I really believe that that's been a huge support of my wellness and balance in life, is really believing, what I've heard from you before. And you are so patient in the way that you speak. I feel like it gives me that opportunity while you're just delivering it to go there. I don't know if I froze. I feel like my connection's not so good now upstairs, but did you want to add something?
The energy has keys to it. In other words, we've been given all the instructions of how to unlock that energy. It's you see it in people. For instance, in negative people, it shows up a lot easier. In the sense, you get some people and they go around and they say, "Oh, I always have bad luck," you know. This morning when I got out of bed, I stubbed my toe, and then then I spilled the coffee on my shirt, and I had to go change my shirt. Blah blah, the thing. And what's happening is they're using that opposite side of that same energy, because they're always thinking that something bad is going to happen to them. That's the thing that they draw to themselves. That energy attracts itself. Negative attracts to negative. And it's the same thing with people who have good luck all the time. And they say, "Oh, I just came back from the bingo and I won $100." Da, 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 and they're always happy. They're always smiling. And it's like that's not like 100% of the time, but you can in fact manifest the things in your life that you want simply by thinking about it, looping about it. Like there's it can go to the opposite extremes as well. Like, for instance, you get millionaires or billionaires and all they can think about is making money, and that's all they do, is because that's all they think about, right? So, and the rest of their life is a shambles. So they're not thinking in a balanced way. They're totally out of balance. And it's kind of like the situation that we have on Earth right now, is to try to sway those energies, the destructive energies. We were warned, these foretellings, these prophecies that we're given. It's even in the creation story. Even in the creation story, it talks about the black snake that's underground. And of course, we know that to be or we believe it to be the oil that they're pumping through these veins. That's really a really destructive thing, and it doesn't have to be that way. There are alternative sources. We've been given wisdom. We've been given the things that it requires to circumvent the global warming, if it's just human activity. But it's at such a point now where we're not going to see it in our lifetime. We're going to have to wait a couple of 100 years before it's going to revert back, if we're able to get enough people on board to say, we have got to be conscious about this, because everything is connected. When I just heard a doctor the other day, and he was actually talking about the virus, and it's the only doctor that I've heard who's been saying the same thing, that since probably around the 40s, I guess, when we start getting into the industrial race. We started off with the radio back in the early 1900s, and we've progressed right up to 5G right now. And these things it's killing the bees. And that's what the scientists are telling us. Is our communications that important that we have to kill the bees? Because if the bees go, what's going to pollinate the plants. We depend on them. There are little gold nuggets, really. I mean, can you imagine going around pollinating all the plants? That would be insane. And so all of the other destructive things that are going on, look at the waters, for instance. There are ways to clean that up. It just takes willpower. It takes pushing. It takes, how do we convince the industries and the governments and the banks, for instance, that this is about life, living a quality life, not about how much money you can put in your bank account. You can't eat that. That's what everybody says. So we can live a productive life, but it's going to take us all together. We need to be doing this together so that when we're together as a group and we're all thinking the same thing, that makes it just multiplies that power over and over and over again, so that we're able to do these things and do it together. But we do need to be working together for that common goal. And I see more and more people that's coming aboard, listening to our ways. It's not rocket science. It's really common sense science, What were there any questions in the chat?
Not really questions, just thank yous, gratitude, love for the connection and the explanations. And there's a partial kind of message about a UFO, said they will help with the electric, but she didn't finish the comment. So if you'd like to put the full comment in, that's interesting. I'd be interested to look at that. Grandmother Renee, I saw you jumping in and out, falling out of the conversation. I think Wi-Fi at this time of day especially is challenging sometimes. Like, I know I'm having an issue, but I'd love to hear. I know you love these conversations. Like, this is just so magical to have conversations like this.
Oh. It validates a lot of things, and I like how we're sharing these things, because it's almost like hearing Jake and Iman, all of us talking about when we would sit and talk. And I like how she said the farmer's almanac is ours. She said, we shared those messages. That's where it originated. She said, this is our message. This is how we knew the stars and plants and all the creation. And they took it and they wrote it. So she said, we can use it. It's ours. And she talked about how those figures, and we talked about those figures in the sky where the stars are. She said, it's just like watching the story unfold, because you'll see everything. The stars are still there doing symbols to represent creation story, and one will always stick. And I was just going through this, and it talks about even about weather and everything. We all knew that. It's just like there's so much more, but I was getting tested by fading in and out. There was a connection, and I wanted to record that, but I was so busy trying to get back on, and so I said, well, this must be for another time. So, but this was valuable. It's just reminding me of a lot of things when I'm sitting with Jake and Reg and all of them, and it's so. I'm going to have to listen to it again to or even go and visit you to talk about these things. You just put a fire under me.
since I have you, I'd like to ask that, because now, so the comment in here, actually, I'll share it to you with you right now. And Sherry and I have these conversations. I'm going to share, and I think I've shared this with you as well, Renee. And I think it's just because I am connected in so many ways. But Sherry and I, when we're on the phone, or if we're, using electricity, sometimes when we get into really beautiful, deep conversations about spirit and just how we're guided by our ancestors, sometimes it's just like I believe that some of my messages come from energy, like electricity or technology, where we could be speaking about something so powerful, and it's Sherry, the same thing happens all the time. All of a sudden we'll be like, this is so exciting, can you imagine if it happens? And it's kind of like we're questioning ourselves, and then it's like, oh no, don't question yourself, boom, disconnected. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's real. And then next thing you know, it manifests. And so it really divinely connected. And I think that I say divinely, but I'm learning my language about it's really connecting to spirit, and, and the star world, and everything beautiful that we've been given by Mother Earth, and just being alive today. And if it wasn't for our elders, the wise ones that have been able to share this knowledge with us, like, I think that's why Sherry and I get so excited about what we're doing here on this platform. It's really to share this knowledge, because we are so full right now of gratitude to be able to hang out with the old wise ones and enjoy the good life. Anyway, I think I'm going to drop out because my thing just keeps circling. So I don't know if I keep cutting out, but Sherry, would you like to kind of close off for us, and everyone have a wonderful long weekend?
I think Renee wanted to say something.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I'm glad that we use the language, the breaking of the language, and how we're connected to that frequency. It relates that fire, and that's what we're told. Every creation has that fire, and there's a lot of other people that are coming to that awareness by, like you said, talking about our water. We do have that power to clean up our waters. That's by using good words. We can all gather at the river and sing to the river, just like we do to our foods. This is why it's so important to use that vibration of kindness and goodness. And when we're talking to our foods, when we're talking to our children, this is what it means, that medicine that comes from the heart is the language, because I always call it the language of love, because it comes from that place that everybody can speak of, because everybody is in that place. I don't know my language. I said, yes, you do. It's the language of love. Once you start using that language of love, you can associate. It breaks it up and it defines in here and in your spirit. So not to worry, but as long as you're speaking the language of love, you'll see all the parts come together, just like our magnificent uncle did to us for today. And that's what our people need. The people all over the world need to see how our language, our original language, defines creation in all of us, that spark. And so people complaining all the time, and they're wondering why things are in chaos. They need, just like Uncle said, we need to raise our vibration up. We need to stop complaining and raising our vibration up so that we can make change to the entire world.
Yeah, it's so true. And we were been doing some work with the town of Oakville, and they have, and we're just speaking of energy here, and they have subtitles on, a closed caption, I guess, and the subtitles. But every time they said, every time the word Jody was mentioned, it turned into a different word, and it turned into God. And so Jody, they could not get Jody in there. They end up getting God in there. So of course we all had a little chuckle, right? And it was just really funny. But when we're talking about energy and really manifesting it, we did that with the land that we have. When we were asked, like, we just kind of like, we went there, we took charge, and in 3 months later, we have a space, and it's just absolutely amazing when you, like you said, coming together and using that energy in a positive way, because we know too, as humans, you can either have that really negative energy that takes you down a really slippery slope, or you can get up to higher vibration, and your life changes, and it's like you're walking on air when you get into that high vibration, and it's amazing, and you don't want to leave it. It's almost addictive, to be in that high vibration, and then how mood swings and stuff like that it just really is not the place where I want to be when it's a low vibration. So I really appreciate all those words about vibration and energy, and then particles, and coming together. It was just, it's just amazing, and I wish we would have more of this, not only for ourselves but also in schools, to teach more of the natural environment, or the universe, and it will come now, because we will have a center, and we'll be able to tell school kids when they come to our center the different ways of looking at things. So I really want to thank both of you for always for being with us, for joining us, and I just want to make a couple of announcements. Next week we have both Renee and Grandma Renee and Grandfather Neil for Tea with Toda on Wednesday, May 26th, and it's from 7 until 9. And as you remember, there were so many great conversations about remember when, and so we're continuing those conversations again next week. And we also want to let you know that we also have a garden, a memorial living monument for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls that's being built up at Country Heritage Park with the cooperation of and partnership with Minicon. And so we've also applied we're also in the top 10 of the David Suzuki Prize for I think it's called Future Ground. And that'll be released next week. And so we'll be looking to our viewers to vote on our garden. And then we also have our good friend Dennis Windigo coming back again. And he'll be with us for 4 evenings next week, I believe. And he'll be talking about trauma, and really having a very robust conversation with him. He is a fantastic teacher, fantastic psychotherapist, and we are just honored that he's also working with us and with Grandmother's Voice, and we couldn't be any happier to have all these wonderful people that are sharing their gifts. And I want to thank both of you, and of course Jody, for hosting us and to be here.
If you don't mind, I'd like to actually just acknowledge as well our partner. And I don't really like to use that language, but Renee, what would we call Country Heritage Park and Jamie and the team over there? Do we call them our partner, our relative? What do we? Because
remember, I said Earthwalkers. We're all of them one mind. We all working together for our Mother, the Earth, Earthwalkers.
Earthwalkers.
Yes,
right?
We include everyone.
And so we just are so grateful that he reached out to Grandmother's Voice and asked. First, it was more for guidance. How do we heal people? And I have this space in this land, and then to open up his heart. Well, we're working on opening him up even more, which is so fun. He's an amazing person. And their team there is a lot of fun. Nyawa, so much. What a way to move into a long weekend where we can all look at the sky and think of our connections to the star world now while we're sitting around our fires and being with our families. Have a great weekend,
Perfect.
Everyone.
Yes, have a great weekend.
Nyawa, Uncle.
Yes, thank you.
Have a beautiful